This is your Niagara Real Estate Podcast, hosted by Patrick Burke and Shawn Delaat, two top-tier realtors who happen to be from two different brokerages, from two different real estate teams, both focused on one thing, the Niagara real estate market. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Shawn Delaat here from the Davids Delaat Real Estate Team with Remax Niagara.
And I'm Patrick Burke with the B team here at McGarr Realty in Niagara as well. Thank you for joining us. This is our initial maiden voyage, first flight podcast, if you will.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
Really exciting. So this is a culmination of a series that we did all last year, and we just did one today for the first of 2022, which was a monthly Instagram live. And so it sort of culminated and grew to what we were doing here today, which is sort of wanted to take it to the next level, to dig into the Niagara real estate market a little bit more, provide some context and background. We're not going to get, I don't think we don't want to get nitty gritty into the data. It's more the overarching things that we're seeing happening, maybe translate, hopefully we're relevant for whether you're a realtor or you're a buyer or a seller, or you're just an enthusiast of what's going on out there. That's fair, yeah?
Absolutely. I think we're going to cover lots of facets for sellers, buyers, and agents as well. Very good content and information.
And I think I have to assume we're going to look into getting into having some guests on too. So as this unravels, we'll figure that out. But I'm pretty excited.
Absolutely.
Pretty excited? I'm very excited, Shawn.
I'd prefer to say that I'm even stoked.
Stoked. Beautiful. So very quick background on what makes this podcast moderately unique. I think one is, as you heard from the intro, we are both working at different real estate brokerages. I think a lot of people get into this business or they see those TV shows and we're all supposed to be fighting with each other, right? We're supposed to be in heated competition on a daily basis. And that's one piece that makes this unique is we're both from different brokerages. We're both from different real estate teams. You were licensed in 2001?
2002.
02, and I'm 03. So we've crossed paths with each other routinely over the years. And
actually, I was thinking about that, Pat. I was thinking about, what, back in the day, how we would cross each other's paths quite a few times. I think there was a few years where I probably did 3 or 4 deals with you.
And it's been we're in a drought.
We're in a drought. But you know what? We're in a drought with a lot of our local realtors of doing deals with each other. But
True. We'll get into that. But yeah, so that's the quick background on us. We are going to do a bit of a deeper dive into that on a future podcast. But yeah, so it's a bit of a different animal. We are both full-time, more than full-time realtors. We both have teams. But we're both here really not to be cheesy. People still say cheesy. We're here for one purpose, and it's just to try to provide some context and shine a bit of a light on what's going on here.
Absolutely. And educate people for sure, because this market and situations are constantly changing, and we just want to provide insight so everyone can understand things just a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. So the title of this podcast is A New Niagara. And we've been kicking around ideas on what to do for our first episode since we even talked about doing this period. And really the new Niagara concept really only came out in the last couple of days as far as something that is the best way to kick things off, because we really are in a new Niagara as far as how houses are bought and sold, as far as who's buying them, as far as timelines, the supply and demand, realtors involved. Everything's different. Fair to say?
100%.
And with any change, some is good and some is not as great. Fair to say?
Fair to say.
Yeah. I recall back in like the 2015-16 market when we first saw a volume increase, because it was like my partner Jim Broderick always described the market as a gentle wave, right?
Yep.
Like we'd have 2,200 sales and 1,900 sales and 2,100 sales, and average sale price would go up by 1%, 2%, 3%, and the whole process of how you sold, like I'd show up to show a house, and I remember that you had like a black Pontiac or Infinity.
No, Infinity, yes.
Years ago.
Yes.
And I showed up and you were coming out from showing a house, and the whole way it happened back then was much more civilized. People could go home and talk about it, go for dinner, sleep on it, get back to you in a couple of days and all that sort of thing. And this new Niagara really it's I think frenetic is the word. It's quick. It's a bit chaotic. Sometimes it's unpredictable. So we would, when did you, like, I guess when we first felt that change was like the 16 market, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. 16 for us, that was the change. We weren't doing hold offers back then, but that was instantly when you had to get in a house that day and get your offer in.
What changed, do you think? What was the impetus behind that?
Well, I think that was the first wave of seeing Niagara as the affordable option from out-of-towners. And so again, when you talk about the new Niagara, our demographic has drastically changed here as well.
Right.
But I really think it was that first influx of out-of-town investors, let alone others, young couples not looking at Hamilton because it was unaffordable and moving to our market. Mm-hmm. And then obviously the year after that, Pat, was our first big boom.
Yeah, the opening 4 innings of 2017 was a monster, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, for all the time, pre-2016, the out-of-town, quote-unquote, out-of-town buyer was largely a very similar demographic. No work remotely was there.
Not at all.
The investor chopping houses into multi-units wasn't really there.
Nope.
The hold and sell another year later wasn't there. Because, again, our values were going up by 1 or 2%.
100%.
And so it was largely like the couple in their 50s or 60s. Their kids are gone to university. They got a place in Florida or Arizona. One of them's retired. They sold for X and they bought for Y, and the difference was enough to enjoy all the fun stuff you can do around here and down in Florida or whatever it was, right? And that's the new Niagara. Is that if you look at it like a table, like a poker table, and one chair was taken by that out of town empty nester, now the poker table is jammed and it's 3 deep, right? And now you have the investor, the flipper, the remote worker.
Yeah,
everything.
Young couple, the new family transplant as well. Niagara is not just for one person; it's for everybody now.
So let me ask you this: everybody, and I get it, the buyer public and a lot of people out there are frankly pissed at the whole idea of the quote unquote Toronto buyer, and I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there as far as what is pushing what's happening right now.
I agree with you 100%. You can't get upset at the Toronto buyer. They're just looking for
they're one
options.
Of though, right?
They're just one of the buyers for sure. Overall, we can both agree, Pat, the problem is this. It's a supply and demand issue. We do not have enough supply to house the demand of people. Mm-hmm. And what is going on, though, is also a little bit of economic evolution within our country. And once people can't afford a certain market, they move to other markets. Mm-hmm. And that has slowly been what's happening since 2015, 2016. Hamilton, Burlington were huge markets then. Our market still wasn't there. People couldn't afford Hamilton, Burlington, and started getting pushed to Niagara. And now when you actually talk about the new Niagara, Pat, one of the interesting things I'm finding is that, everyone from Burlington, Oakville can sell their houses for big money, come down to Niagara and, have money in the bank. But what do our people from Niagara do? Well, they're leaving.
Yeah. And if we weren't a peninsula, they'd go past Fort Erie, right?
100%.
But until we invade Buffalo, the last stop on the train is Port Colborne, Fort Erie. Or you go back around, you go down to Sarnia and Woodstock and down towards Windsor and all that. And from what I understand down there, they're experiencing, again, the same metrics that we are. So it's a new Niagara. It's a new fill in the blank here.
100%.
And how much, if COVID didn't happen, that's one thing I always think about. If COVID didn't happen, what changes? And I know it's impossible to answer, but I'm going to make you answer it.
You know what? So here's the thing. If COVID never happened, this would still happen.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter was we still wouldn't have had enough supply to house the demand. Now, obviously, the low interest rates may have thrown a little more investment in the market for the past 2.5 years since we've had COVID.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the affordability factor is our problem.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not just Niagara. It's not just Toronto. It's not just Calgary. This is actually a world issue. Affordability is a challenge. This is happening in South Korea. This is happening in Barcelona, Spain.
Damn, you go deep on your research, man.
Oh,
I didn't even get out west.
That's it, you know, and it's a problem for everybody. So this is going to continue and maintain, and we're going to see people who leave Niagara to move out west, to move out east, to relinquish their equity so they can have a simpler life, like the people from Burlington and Toronto and Oakville moving to our area. And I think though COVID has had an exponential effect in the sense that it has made people think of change. It has made people embrace change. You know, Canadians were never the people to lift up from one community, let alone move 500 miles away.
Right.
And now that's happening.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And like I said, this is just growth of a country, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah, that mobility of employment, which I think two things. Mobility of employment was really boosted by COVID.
Yep, work from home.
Pun not intended. Yeah, and people in industries you would never imagine would be on quote unquote permanent work from home. I don't know how permanent work from home is, but right now, people in white collar industries that were laden with paper and that had meetings and that had cubicles and can I see you at 3:00 in my office and that kind of stuff. Those people are remote work, permanent from home contracts is incredible. Financial institutions and that sort of thing. And then I'm talking to people. One couple, she works for a not-for-profit that is 40 minutes up the highway, and she's permanently work from home. She's in the philanthropy department, so trying to raise funds. Sure, you don't have to work in an office. Hit the road, and so that mobility of employment is enormous. And it's not just we always thought it was like the quote unquote entrepreneur running a tech company or a marketing company, but it's all these different industries.
Oh, it's a person working at Enbridge from a call center can now work from home, plug into their computer. They can tape the conversations, do all the stuff. So
I think in 20 years time, 10 years time, the studies and the research and the sort of knowledge gained from what happened over these 2 years is going to be pretty fascinating.
There is
bonkers. Right?
There is going to be exponential
like university degrees are gonna spend terms focusing on what just happened.
Absolutely, 100%. Whether it's the housing market, the economics, let alone, hey, was it worth it to shut the world down, or all these different things. They're going to be reports for years and years and years to come. Yep. But I'm just going to be power of positive thinking that
that's all you can do
at the end
100%.
Of this, and normality can come back around.
Yep.
But
can I say this? Your coffee here is delicious. I don't know what you've served. We are filming this at Davids Delaat headquarters. Is that what you call it?
Sure.
Mission Control.
Command
Center.
The command center.
So yeah, thank you.
Our pleasure. And yes, it is good coffee.
You don't even drink coffee.
I actually drink that coffee.
Do you?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
Good.
So
this brings us to that whole going back to the GTA buyer. One we always had a small portion of our market sold to out of town quote unquote buyers, and most of the time I don't have any data to back it up, it's just experience or instinct, is they came down and they bought their home with a realtor down here. Rarely they would come down with their agent from Barrie or Waterloo, but sometimes, and we would think it was crazy, what are you guys doing? And that big change that we've seen now is people coming down from Waterloo. We had a listing of our sale the other day. The agent's from Waterloo, and I know you guys have a listing right now up in Elora.
Yes.
So that, speaking of a mobility of employment, mobility of realtors, right? Mm-hmm. So now the Niagara board at 1,400 agents, really there's one big board that's however many tens of thousands of agents, right?
100%.
And so the general public here, the people that want to quote unquote get that big Toronto money, have a perception that in order to do that, I need to work with the agent that works in the GTA because, of course, they have the access to those buyers. My little Johnny realtor here in Niagara probably doesn't. And if the Toronto buyers are paying that money, I need that Toronto agent. And that misconception, I think, to some extent, is a communication piece that our local association probably Our local brokerages, our local realtors need to beat that drum.
100%, because I agree with you wholeheartedly. It is a giant misconception to list your home with an out-of-town agent thinking they are going to get you more money than a local agent.
Right.
And there's numerous reasons why, Pat, and let's just touch on that. Please. Number one, their agent has a website that services Toronto listings. Their metrics to go to their website are more for Toronto. People are not searching their website for Niagara listings. Number two, most Niagara realtors are a member of the Niagara Real Estate Board, as well as their brokerages are a member of the Toronto Real Estate Board. Their listing is getting exposed to the Toronto Real Estate Board as well as the Niagara Real Estate Board. So many out-of-town agents do not even expose the listing on the Niagara Real Estate Board, missing a mass majority of the market.
That board thing is the piece that the general public doesn't know. And right now, Niagara is part of an organization called ITSO. And then ITSO, I don't have the exact numbers, but I know it's over 15,000 realtors are on ITSO and over 20 boards all across Ontario. And you can go to, if you Google it, ITSO real estate boards, you'll see. And so an agent in Kitchener-Waterloo can pull up the listing at 123 Main Street here just as easily as I can pull up the listing at 123 Main Street in Kitchener-Waterloo, Milton, Mississauga, Oakville, Barrie, Peterborough, all over the place, right? And then, like you mentioned, the Toronto board is the Toronto board. But one thing that we're seeing, which is so counterintuitive to logic, is an agent in Toronto lists a house down here. I'm just going to pull, actually this address doesn't even exist, 300 Tavistock in St. Catharines. And they're going to list it down here, but they don't put it on this Niagara board. And so those 15,000 members that I just mentioned do not see that Tavistock listing unless, for whatever reason, they're going to the Toronto Real Estate Board, which has how many realtors? 60,000, 70,000 realtors.
Yeah.
Imagine going to the Toronto Real Estate Board to look for a listing in St. Catharines, right? And that's one piece that the general public would be really served if CREA would make a requirement to list the property on the board of the city in which it's located.
100%.
And I know that's nitty gritty, boring real estate nerd stuff, but holy crap, that needs to change, because it's like, I want to book a hotel in Philadelphia, so I'm going to go to DetroitHotels.com to find the hotel. That's how stupid it is.
Exactly. And you hit the nail right on the head. It's exactly, who is going to a Toronto agent's website to search for Niagara listings? No one, because they list in Toronto.
Right.
You know, and that's actually one thing when you kind of talk about new Niagara and different changes in our industry is, Pat, when you and I first started in real estate, it was just the Niagara board. We kept that in our pocket.
Everybody was in a silo.
Everyone was in, and you know, and that was the thing. And now with this migration of buyers and everything like that, and I'm truly not opposed to it, because they're coming anyways.
Right.
So let's make it easier. But personally, like you said, I would never, ever use an out-of-town agent. Now, don't get me wrong. Right this second, Pat, like you mentioned, I listed a house in Elora.
I know what you're going to say.
I can put a sign on anyone's lawn, list it anywhere, and sell it.
Yeah.
But that's right now. There is a thing called a little balancing in the market.
Yeah.
And that is when you need that local agent. When your house is going to stay on the market beyond a week, you need that local agent to service your listing, who will give you the exposure locally, yet out of town. We do social posts to out of town. We pay Google money to drive people to our websites from out of town. You know, we offer that exposure. And in all fairness to the general public out here who are selling their home here in Niagara, yes, us Niagara realtors do realize that everyone wants Toronto buyers, but do not discount local buyers. But us as local agents can attract the out of town buyers more easily actually than the local buyers, for exact reasons. Like we said, they're searching Niagara, not Toronto for Niagara.
And that's on the list of misconceptions. A lot of big dollar sales in Niagara. I'm thinking of a few in St. Catharines in particular. People think, oh my goodness, that's got to be Toronto money. Like some I'm talking north of $3 million, $4 million sales were Niagara people that bought them. So this isn't a magical white horse that comes clip-clopping down the QEW This is people that are in town here that have spent though. So it's, again, put that on the list of misconceptions is the money.
There is money in Niagara.
The flow doesn't go that way. Yeah.
No, there's for sure. And the funny thing that you mentioned that, Pat, is again, 20 years ago, you and I started in real estate. You know, we were younger. And since then, with this market, with this growth, the people that have been able to build wealth within Niagara now is exponential. And you're absolutely correct. There is buyers who can afford these high prices because guess what? Their house also went up in value.
That's right.
And they built exponential amounts of equity that now they can put down on another property. So, you know, kind of like we touched on the Instagram Live today, is I'm excited about what's to come.
But you always are. And that's, I think you naturally, the people that do the best in this business are, I don't know why I keep coming back to Mark Vail as just a classic, classy, positive, do the right thing agent. And when you talk to people, Rusty Crudy, another one, been at it. I think he started selling real estate in the late 40s. No, I'm just kidding.
We're joking. We're joking, Rusty.
Yeah. But you know, even though you can get down on things, but the overall, the big picture perspective is positivity, doing the right thing, helping people and all that, right?
Absolutely.
Sorry, that's a bit of an aside. But,
no, and just
that's so important.
Understanding things don't last. I think for you and I both, Pat, I think...
Remember the 2008 and 09 market?
Oh, yes. Actually,
what did you do?
To be honest with you, I had my best year.
I know we had a good year too.
You just keep your head down. And guess what? At that point, I didn't focus on listings. There was buyers out there and you just get the buyers and to help them buy. And there's always opportunities in whatever market. And the key thing is to remember, nothing lasts
Markets
forever.
Always change.
And I think for me personally, it was like, it's that 2017. Because I'm telling you, when I was in it, it didn't seem like it was going to end. I actually bought a house at the height of it and it closed and it softened. And so I got myself involved as a buyer. It didn't feel like it was ever going to end. And sure enough, like that, the snap of a finger, it changed. You know, and it comes down to sustainability of a certain market. Like there's certain price points that just can't keep on going and going. And you think about 2017, interest rates were higher. You know, and then all of a sudden the COVID and then they got really low, and because of COVID, they just stayed. You know? Well,
I believe the overnight rate was just before COVID was 1.75, and it's been swimming at 0.25. So even, you know, we're all expecting, I'm shocked we didn't see a bump in the rate a couple of days ago. But if I would bet my car that we have that in March.
I would probably even bet more than that. We can make a side bet after. We'll make it really spicy. But I 100% agree with you. I was actually quite shocked as well. I know the government really, really wanted the bank to raise the rates. But the good old Canadian bank stood up to the government and just said, nope, not now. So we do know for a matter of fact that rates will rise.
They have to.
Agreed.
And that we talk about the investor piece down here. We did a little survey on Instagram today, and the general consensus amongst realtors was 25 to 40% of the buyer demand in Niagara right now is investors. And what turns investors off? Well, the overall valuation, the net, how the numbers run. And as they get less and less attractive, less and less people come to the table. And that's what we're expecting to see once the rates pop up, once the government, it'd be interesting to see. I know there was talk of it, and now it's sort of whittled away, the idea of raising interest rates for investors, you know, popping that up from 20% to whatever percent.
Oh, down payment, you mean?
Down payment, pardon me. And then the overall purchase price having gone up, we're seeing numbers right now of the 12 to 15% increase in prices in the first 3 weeks of January. Clearly that's going to curtail and pull back a little bit, but that interest rate hike not happening a couple of days ago is just going to fuel this fire for another 6 weeks. Talk about Groundhog's Day. How many weeks left in this market? Right now it's 6.
So, not only that, I believe it's going to be extended a little beyond that now, because if they did the rate hike now, everyone would lock in. We know they're locked in for 90 days.
Right.
So now person locks in with the higher rate for March. They're good well into summer. So really this, by into summer and fall.
This spring market is going to be.
This spring market is still going to be crazy. Like I think for this coming February, we are going to see some crazy sale prices.
Yeah.
I do think that this is still an opportunity for people who really want to change their lives, who do not have to buy a house, who are in a position where they can go rent and live the later years of their lives, or who want to sell their house and make a change and move across the country. Because absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. The new Niagara is changing. Our local demographic that you and I have known and built beautiful careers off of is shrinking exponentially because people are moving, people are passing away, and the growth that's happening are people we don't know moving to Niagara, and this will all continue. The talk of the GO. This GO train situation is not in full-fledged motion quite yet.
Right.
But as our
how long has that been talked about? Oh my
God. It's the funny thing is, Pat, it's happening.
Yeah.
There's a day trip from St. Catharines and Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
And it's going to go to Fort Erie. Yeah. And the challenge is this. We just need the development to start going. And I relate it like this. You look at London, England, or you look at New York City. How many people live an hour and a half away and take that train in steady, and they've been doing it for decades and decades and decades. We just haven't hit there yet. But all this stuff is happening. Think about now Canadians migrating across our country to live. Never. It was always, I work where I live. But in the United States, they've been doing it again for decades and decades. So as much as this is all new to us, it really is just growth. And we're going to have to accept it. And to be honest, we're going to have to embrace it because in the end, we shouldn't look at this as a negative. It really is a positive.
It just is.
It is what it is. And it is a positive for other communities. Now, don't get me wrong. People from out east will hate people from Ontario, just like people from Niagara hate people from Toronto.
Passing the ball.
And people from Calgary are going to hate people from Ontario. Like Ontario is going to get a bad rap around the rest of the country. I hear they're already shaking Ontarians out east with sticks, or they're doing some bad things once they see that Ontario license plate. You know? So, but
that's right. Get a magnet put over top.
Because the funny thing is, out east, their houses are so low. Well, where does the person from out east go? When they want to relinquish, they're like the last man on the totem pole. They got nowhere to go. So fair enough to them for being a little disgruntled, but there's a thing called acceptance. And that is
you got to figure out how to swim in the waters that you're swimming in, right?
Absolutely.
And I want to rewind the tape 11 minutes just for 30 seconds. You mentioned listing a property up in Elora, and I would suggest that a good agent can list a home anywhere and do an effective job in a market like we have right now.
Absolutely.
But like you said, a property that's a little more challenging to sell, or something that's at the top end of pricing range, or as soon as the winds change direction a bit and the buyers feel they have a little bit more control, that's where the listing agent, taking calls on restaurants and schools and parks and age of construction and neighborhood concerns and where's the closest X, Y, and Z. Timmy wants Taekwondo lessons. Where can he go? And that agent who lives 90 minutes away, who may not even listed the property on the right board, is not able to handle that. So in this market right here, right now, sure. And at that point, the listing agent is the one that's sort of managing the chaos. And I would suggest even that, you still have to be exceptional at how to handle that, right?
Yes. Typically, I would not take an out-of-town listing. I believe that is poor service to the seller. We agree right now in this market, there's opportunities. You can put a sign on the lawn and do the hold offers. It's easy peasy. But we've talked about things shaping up potentially come summer, spring, and the market balances. I am not the person to be listing a property out of town. Numerous reasons. I don't know the market. I don't know the locations of schools, anything like that. I don't understand the pricing. When the market balances, am I priced too high? Am I priced too low? It does not do anyone a service. For example, 3 years ago, had a buddy call me up. Has a house $5 million in Toronto, says, Shawn, list my property. sorry, I am not listing your property, but I am going to do you a service and refer you to a top agent in your area. He was quite disgruntled for a little while because I'm his friend, and he thought, hey, we can make this happen. But in the end, he acknowledged that it was so great that I referred him to this agent. They actually became friends. I am now his local Niagara realtor, and he has this wonderful Toronto realtor. Right. And the sale was very successful. And he understood and appreciated that, hey, Shawn wasn't going to get in his car to service the listing. Shawn didn't exactly know the price. I did do a comparable search for him. My numbers were a little off, and it just worked out really, really well. Mm-hmm. Typically, most good agents in their market are too busy to leave their market.
Hop in the car and drive 140 kilometers each way to do something that might take 17 minutes.
Well, not even that, Pat. Even drive 30 minutes up to Hamilton.
Right.
I'm not getting involved.
Yeah.
I don't know the market there. I don't want to get involved in multiple offers. Like I said, listings kind of easy now, but that's going to get shaken up. And that is where, again, you lean on your local realtor because they are going to give you the best result in a changing market.
Right. And that's that old thing of, you just put a sign in the ground and take some calls and everybody's happy, right? But that local agent has the insight and the background knowledge and the understanding of the nuances of the market, why something's better than something else, things to know, all that good stuff. And like if I want to go buy a cottage a cottage up north, and you and I are buddies, we've known each other forever. Hey, Shawn, take me up to wherever it is. I want to buy a cottage. You're not the person that's going to be able to explain to me, riparian rights and cottage property lines. Have one look at property lines up there. It's all over the place. Speaking of Wild West.
Absolutely. People have encroachments, everything. It's wild.
And the difference between this lake and that lake and this exposure and that exposure and it's endless, right?
100%.
And so it's not to that extreme, but still, if I live 130 kilometers up the highway and I want to buy a house down in Niagara and I call my buddy up there, does he know the difference in construction on this side of Vine Street and that side of Vine Street? Does he know the age, the influence of the schools, the parks, the restaurants, the things to do, the things to not do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And that's what we're seeing right now is this sort of, I think homogeneous is the word, where the market, St. Catharines, Niagara, used to behave differently depending where you're looking. And with this market that we've seen the market start to behave uniformly, whether it's as crazy as it is to say, whether it's Niagara on the Lake, which was always the outlier, right? Whether it's Niagara on the Lake or Welland or Thorold or Lincoln or wherever, the same data, the same sort of market atmosphere as far as supply and demand, what buyers are doing, what sellers are doing, is happening top to bottom. But there's still within there, that's why we're seeing some people paying things because they're seeing something happening over this city or this area of the city, and they're saying, well, that happened there, therefore this is worth that, when in fact those two areas couldn't be more different.
100%.
And now they're becoming less unique to each other.
Yeah, I felt that Welland was morphing into the rest of Niagara. Last year it started with the numbers they were achieving. Yeah. And it's funny, you go beyond Grimsby, it's not St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, Welland, Fort Erie. Yeah. It's the almighty Niagara.
Right.
And that's the spot. I always joke like this. 15 years ago, I could have went to a party in Burlington and people say, where are you from? I'm like, St. Catharines, Niagara. Oh. What do you do? You low income bums down there. I could go to that same party in Burlington tonight. Oh, you're from Niagara. I love Niagara. Yeah. Oh, the wineries. We love to go down and visit.
My friend so-and-so just moved there.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. And fair enough. Niagara is a darn sweet spot. It's home to me. I'm not leaving. I might have a property somewhere else for the south to get away from the winter. But other than that, Niagara truly is home. And it is exciting to see that people are attracted to Niagara for all the wonderful reasons we've enjoyed all our lives.
Right. So yeah, that loss of the city by city trend, and loss of understanding of, what's this worth, what's that worth, again, wraps into the theme of the new Niagara. And I know there's a lot of strain out there amongst realtors of how I operate in this new Niagara. And when you look at the last 10, 15 years, maybe not 15, I didn't look that far back, last decade, there's between 8,000 and 10,000 sales per year, roughly, right? And so if you average that out, you say, okay, we're looking at between 16,000 and 20,000 quote unquote ends, number of buy-ins, number of sale ends. And even though there's, now again, homogeneous is no longer just 1,400 Niagara realtors. Now you've got realtors from all over the place. We're looking at 45 to 55% of sales right now being represented by brokerages from out of town. But that being said, how many quote unquote ends does an agent need to live a happy life? And so when you see 16,000 or 20,000 ends a year, Johnny Realtor maybe needs 18, 12, 20, whatever it is.
With these sale prices these days?
Well, yeah, that's another story. But yeah, so the change in just, again, the new Niagara, the change in how things are bought and sold, how agents interact, how the market trends are happening and everything else, it's top to bottom, left to right. It's completely a new environment.
Well, absolutely. And when we talk about this new Niagara and kind of Niagara morphing into just this one kind of mega city, there's talk of also transit improving between cities and stuff like that. And again, this is all growth and exciting things that will definitely continue changing and making Niagara the quote unquote new Niagara we're talking about. Mm-hmm. It's going to be exciting for years and years to come down here. Mm-hmm. There's going to be exponential amounts of growth. I just did a little video last week kind of studying some things, and the population of Niagara, they're suggesting by 2036 will be closer to 600,000 people.
What's it at right now?
We're just shy of 500,000 people.
Yeah, I feel like my whole life I've driven past the St. Catharines population sign, and it's gone from 124 to 131 or 33.
Yeah,
and I know because we're landlocked, unless we invade Thorold or build more high rises, there's not a lot of room to grow.
Well,
right?
And high rises will come.
Because we know Thorold would kick the crap out of St. Catharines in a fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Pat, though, when you bring up this condo element, like think about us back in the day 8 years ago. It just was not feasible for anyone to build a condo tower because you could buy a detached home for $400,000. Who's going to pay $600,000 for this condo?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Here we are.
We dealt with that Walker's Creek condo. And actually, my parents bought a condo townhouse 12 years ago. And they were in a nice home in the North End down by Lakeshore Road. And they still had to pay $50,000 more for the new condo townhome than the house they were selling on the detached lot with all the fixings, right?
It's the same thing for townhouses. Yeah. Ran into the same thing for townhouses.
Yeah. And it's the same thing now.
It is.
But instead of it, you're selling for $290 and you're buying for $330, you're buying for $790 and you're buying for $880 or whatever the math is.
It's all relative.
Yeah. We've covered a lot, man. A lot. We've covered the data, the demographic shifts, they're not just GTA buyers. We've changed how listings are put up online and how that's changed. Out-of-town buyer brokerages representing 45 to 55 to 60% of all buyers right now. Why we see that changing as the overall, interest rate picture and dollars picture and all that's wrapped into that changes. Looking at seeing the buyer demand ease from that end of the market. We talked affordability, how to get into the market. We haven't really touched on that, even though we've said how difficult it is to get into the market. We haven't touched on ways you can actually do that.
Let's talk about that for 1 second.
Yes, I'm glad we did this recap. Go on.
Yes, so for 1 second, because there is opportunities for our local buyers to still get into the market. But guess what? You may have to grab a friend.
Yeah.
You may have to grab your brother. Mm-hmm. You may have to grab a cousin. Last year, helped my past client's son and his cousin buy a property together.
Interesting.
He called me up and says, Shawn, my son wants to buy a house. He's approved for $250,000.
Yeah.
I said, are you going to help him out and give him some more money? Because you ain't getting nothing. Mm-hmm. Well, his cousin kind of wants to buy. Let's go get them pre-approved together. Yeah. They could afford up to $600,000. Bought a house together. Mm-hmm. The in-law suited the basement for separate units. Yeah. Guess what? Now, after 1 month of that, the one cousin moved upstairs and they're renting the basement out. Yeah. And they're going to be in a position probably in 3 years that they can use that equity to buy another house.
That's cool.
And help two sisters.
And that's that creativity thing that on our Instagram Live, Connie was talking about, the creativity thing, bringing that to get in. And on top of that is the value of a realtor to say, to come to the table with, hey, look, X, Y, and Z's not happening, but what if we tried this? And then people are like, hold on a second, that can work, right? Because the dream of, I'm going to buy my first house. It's going to be a detached house north of Scott. It's going to be like the one I grew up in. It's going to have a driveway and it's going to have all this stuff. No, it's not. And the general
now it's going to have a kitchen apartment in the basement.
It's going to, or it's going to be a condo apartment. And you're not going to love it right now, to quote my buddy Tom's story. You're not going to love it right now, but you're going to love it in 5 years when it comes time to take that equity and get into the next property, right?
Agreed. At least, you know what, get into something. And you hit the nail on the head again, too. Condos are a great opportunity for young people. And again, if they have to buy it, they get a 2-bedroom and buy it with someone else. Just get something and get your feet rocking and rolling.
Have you looked at the numbers on? I just happened to last week because I was like you. I had my gut instinct on where numbers were. And then I thought maybe I should check the data to see if I'm not just sort of improvising. And it was roughly in St. Catharines, condo apartments, taking out the big, the big guns, the waterfront 701 Geneva or the Yates stuff, the good old fashioned, the 162 Martindale, Towering Heights, Scott Street, all those guys, is up about 1/3 the amount that the detached house in that same area is going for. Because quite often if somebody lives here, in this area of town, and there's a condo half a kilometer away, they're probably interested in that. And so their house has gone up by X, and the condo has actually gone up by 1/3 to maybe a half of that. So your net positive is actually up, right? And that goes back to that challenge where those sellers quite often don't actually know that their house is worth 8. They think it's still worth 6.25.
Yes.
As much as we like to think everybody tracks the market all the time, they don't.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah. You can have some conversations with people right now and let them know what's going on, and they're just flabbergasted.
And that's where this gig of being a creative realtor comes in, is to have chats with people. And it's not to try to like push people out the back door and sell their house. It's to show them, like you've said, you can change their lives. You can have a couple sell their house and go into a place they never thought they'd be able to retire into, because they find out what their place is actually worth. That's where we come in.
And 100%. And that's, again, a good reason to use a local realtor.
Right.
Because we got our insights best. And not only that, like I care about our Niagara community, and there's opportunities to help people in this current market make a lot of money from selling, or saving people a lot of money from selling. Because, again, this is this now. We could safely potentially say in 5 years, again, we will have maybe another boom. And for those who are holding on to their houses now, if they got 5 years and whatever, they can potentially wait out to that boom. We're going to have continually these booms as our country grows. And there's going to be, that 45-year-old guy now who's like, no, I'm just going to stay in my house. What's the point? Well, once he hits 50, the next boom, he'll be like, whoa, this is all-time high for me now, Shawn. Let me take my money out. And that's where we as realtors can help and guide people and help them make the right decisions.
And then let them make the decision.
Let them make the decision.
Right, 100%.
Providing them with the proper information.
Right.
That is one thing I'm a little disgruntled about there. I think there is a lot of different information flying around. Some self-interest on agents just trying to push people into things. But, it's wild.
You've probably had this conversation with clients. I have, with working with people from up in Toronto that come down here, and they say this following sentence to me: "What should we offer on this house?" And there is the door that opens to somebody who's got integrity or somebody who doesn't. So how I answer that question determines what price they put on page 1 of that offer. And so I say, you know what? You should really offer this. Okay. And there isn't let's look at what recent sales have happened close by and give you a better context on stuff. That's the difference. Those two lanes determine where you're going to go, right? And I think there's a lot of people right now, when they say to that agent who, again, doesn't know the difference between 7 Gale and 162 Martindale and 379 Scott Street, that say, what should I offer? And they just throw a dart at the dartboard.
So I get that question all the time.
All the time.
From out-of-town agents. Shawn, what's your seller's expectation?
Yeah.
So I will handle it this way. Well, it's listed for $599. I've had 48 showings so far. The drill, out of town agent. The offers are being presented this day. So bring me your best number.
Yeah.
Because you and I don't know where it's going to go. But the challenge is this. These out-of-town agents are caught up in this well before we are in Niagara. These out-of-town agents...
They've been in this environment
the environment, but not only that, 3 months ago, this was already happening in Hamilton and Burlington. So they're pumped up on their sales and getting the big numbers. They're pumped on coaching their buyers and saying, well, you got to do this. So again, another reason to use a local realtor is these out-of-town agents are pushing a lot of these buyers to drop these big numbers. And Pat, I think we can agree in reality, sometimes they just don't have to. Yeah. But they're being fueled off the market out of town.
Right.
And then they bring that fuel to our market, and now we're feeling it.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's a window of opportunity where this fuel is just on fire.
Yeah.
And but we can agree, I don't think this can maintain.
I guess it's just the perspective. We can wrap this up, but I think it's the perspective that they bring. Imagine if we're here and we see a house in the north end is getting $850, and it's going and now it's getting $9, whatever it is, and then we go to Anytown, USA, or Anytown, Canada, and that same house now is $550. I don't care. I'll pay $650 for it because it's $850 where I'm from, which is ridiculous. But that's the mentality. I think that sure, it's $850 where you are, but you still have to look at the market. And these guys are seeing this whole. We talk about Niagara being one market. They're seeing it as it's either Toronto or it's not, but the gap isn't as wide as we think it is.
I 100%, because last year I was evaluating houses in Stony Creek, and if you look at Stony Creek right now, probably what's going on there, their sale prices are probably maybe $100,000 more than what we're experiencing in North End St. Catharines right now.
Yeah.
You know, we are becoming very close to one blanketed market outside of Toronto, like whereas Brantford will be the same prices as Niagara. You know, we're basically the same proximity, and you know, and this will just kind of continue to happen. That, you know, Toronto is Toronto, and anywhere outside of Toronto, a bungalow is $800,000.
Yeah.
Now a bungalow is $1 million.
Yeah.
If I want to move outside, so you know, and
they don't have any geographic predisposition. They're like, it's there. If it costs X here and X less 10% there, I'm going to go buy it there, even though the number may not make sense to people that live there.
That's it.
Like I saw somebody on Instagram, an agent up in Milton, and their average sale price right now, or I can't remember the time frame, but it was a long enough time frame. It was more than Niagara Lake for the entire city of Milton. And so again, those are the people that come down and see a detached on whatever, you know, down by Lakeshore Road, 1,100 square foot, needs a whole bunch of updating. They say $8.25, no problem.
I know. It's
we could talk about that for, I don't know,
forever,
the rest of the month.
For sure.
Shawn, I think we're done. I think we're good.
This was fun, my friend.
It was awesome.
This is going to be very exciting. I like this. It's a little, for us being in the business 20 years, Pat, it's a little different dynamic to, it allows us to have a little fun in our industry.
And who doesn't like gear and stuff that goes up and down?
I got to be honest, Pat, I didn't know if I was going to be into it, but you know me. Now I'm into it. I'm in.
So if you've enjoyed what you heard today, make sure you subscribe whatever podcast platform you're listening on, or if you're seeing this on social, on YouTube or otherwise. Subscribe and stay in the loop. We are going to be doing this routinely. We're not going anywhere.
Nope.
And we're going to have, we're going to be able to do some interviews along the way, have other people come in. And again, not just real estate. We can dig into all avenues and all facets of life here in Niagara.
100%.
That's the plan, right?
That is the plan.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Take care.
All right. We'll see you.
This has been your Niagara Real Estate Podcast. If you like what you heard, please make sure you subscribe on whatever podcast platform you found us on. Have a friend looking for help? Remember, sharing is caring. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.